The following program will never judge you. We know that you almost certainly do some pretty stupid things. Maybe you tap the lit elevator button so that the elevator knows that now you are ready for it to come, and you mean business. Perhaps you smack your remote control to get that sucker to work. Or even if you pack so many sets of underwear for a 3-day trip that you seem ridiculously worried you will go code brown worse than any human in history. Whatever your deal, it ain't our business. We don't judge. So hit subscribe and smash that like button like they're a defective iPad. The following program is about to begin. Everybody, welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Lawgic. Hope your day's been going well. Probably not been going as well for you as Gavin Newsom thinks his day has been going for him. In case you missed it, the lunatics are ever more pressing their lunacy. I'm not simply referring to Gavin Newsom and a pair of bills that he managed to pass today, affecting three different statutes in his in the Golden State. And sadly, when people refer to the Golden State, it's pretty much the same way people think of it's the way people use the term golden in Urban Dictionary. However, he's not the only one who's a lunatic today. We're going to cover lunacy coming out of the White House press corps. Let's start with this. With KJP. What an utterly insane individual. Part of an historic administration. She recognizes the significance of her role and the time that she has here and what she's bringing to America, and that she's now a part of history. I heard her say that. I've shared that with you so that you would, otherwise people would think I'm making it up. But no, she thinks it's historic, and she wants you to know it.
So you're saying that the president and vice president believe that former President Donald Trump should be toning down his rhetoric?
So I'll say this. President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat that the former president represents to our democracy. He's been
the threat. You see, this is toning down the rhetoric. The threat that he represents to our democracy. To our democracy that we're taking away from you.
Clear-eyed about that. From his role, let's not forget, from his role of January 6th, where he refused to accept the outcomes of free and fair elections. Look what
you can see how quickly like her upper eyelids like blink. I think she highlights them so you can understand how her eyes are kind of like not even believing the words that are coming out of her mouth when she's saying. Look at the fluttering. You can't. That's more fluttering than a butterfly's wings.
Oh, let's not forget, from his role of January 6th, where he refused to accept the outcomes of free and fair elections. Look what happened on that day.
Now that I said it, you can't unsee it, can you? You can't unsee it, can you?
Some of you were there at the Capitol. Some of you have colleagues who were there at the Capitol, reported and saw what happened. 2,000 angry people went there to try to overturn a free and fair election.
That's
and
speculative.
So
that's a subjective call. When you call free and fair election, that's a bit subjective.
It's not going to stop the president and the vice president to continue to strongly call out, when it comes to protecting our democracy. We have
that's very much protecting our democracy. She's so bitter about the fact that he wasn't killed. Like, how can they not have done this yet?
Have to be forceful about that. We have to be very clear.
So you're saying that the president.
So she's doubling down. We have to be very forceful. That's what we have to do. We have to do that. Oh, it's so imperative that we do that. We have no choice. We have to do that. Peter Doocy, though, is going to point out the ridiculousness of her position. Does this one also need to be? Yeah, this one's going to be louder too.
2 days since somebody allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump again. And you're here at the podium in the White House briefing room calling him a threat. How many more assassination attempts on Donald Trump until the president and the vice president and you pick a different word to describe Trump other than threat?
This is all your fault. She knows he's saying that. This is all your fault. Is there going to be some accountability? Like, wow, I didn't really think about that. Oh, you know, that's kind of a point. Yeah, maybe I should be dialing down the rhetoric. Maybe I should. No. Listen to this press secretary. What an embarrassment.
Pick a different word to describe Trump other than threat.
Peter, if anything from this administration,
This is where she wants to say, she really wanted to say 3 words, which was Peter, and then a 4-letter word, and then a 3-letter word. The 3-letter word being a pronoun, and it ain't she or her or Z. It ain't him. No. It was a 4-letter word followed by a 3-letter pronoun. That's what she wanted to say. Y'all heard it.
Peter, if anything from this administration, I actually completely disagree with the premise of your question.
Yeah. You're talking about how his rhetoric is dangerous while you're engaging in far more egregious rhetoric because you're referring to him as a threat. What do you have to do to a threat? You have to obliterate a threat before the threat carries through on its threat. That's the point of calling it a threat.
The question that you're asking, it is also incredibly dangerous in the way that you're
Your question is dangerous, not my tone. It's your question that's dangerous. What a lunatic. You talk about this is they talk about orange man bad. This is orange woman lunatic.
asking it because American people are watching. And to say that from a administration,
The hubris of this incompetent boob
who has consistently condemned political violence
while screaming about how ultra MAGA is the biggest threat is the biggest domestic threat to this country faces.
From an administration where the president called the former president.
Who cares? Yeah, after the fact. Yeah. After the fact, I was sitting here. Oh, is everything okay? Oh, you're still alive? Okay, thanks.
And was grateful that he was okay.
Oh yeah, did he get down on his hands and knees and thank God that Donald Trump is okay? Did that happen? Can we get video of that? I want video. That's what I want. I want to see video of Joe Biden down on his hands and knees, thanking God that Donald Trump was unharmed.
From an administration who has called out January 6th.
Oh yeah, now she's going to list off all the different litanies of ways that they've been basically screaming threat about Republicans to prove that she's not a danger. It's like, how incompetent does someone have to be to actually listen to her and not think that she's so obviously full of hot feces? She's going to list off all the different times that they yelled at Republicans, that they went after Republicans to prove that they're not ramping up the rhetoric.
Who has called out January 6th, called out the attack of Paul Pelosi.
Pelosi.
And said we need to lower the temperature after the Butler incident.
Ooh.
And now for you to make that kind of...
No, because you call that out and then you say threat.
Comment in your question, because your question involved a comment and a statement.
Yeah, it is. It's a statement. You keep using the term threat. Don't you think that's ridiculous, considering the statement is there was an attempted assassination a couple of days ago. That was the statement.
And, it is, that is also incredibly dangerous.
How is that dangerous?
2 days since somebody...
That's incredibly dangerous. Unbelievable.
after the Butler incident. And now for you to make that kind of comment in your question, because your question involved a comment and a statement.
Unbelievable, this woman.
And, it is,
You're
that is
fake
also
news.
incredibly dangerous.
You're fake news. That's what you are. You're fake news. I said it. Okay? I said it. Tim Pool defamation paperwork against Harris today. Nice. He filed it? Let me see if he filed it. I didn't see that. I don't think he. I don't see that in any sort of being reported anywhere. You're welcome, Brian. I'm not sure what you're thanking me for, but my pleasure. Anytime. Okay. Don't want to go to this next. No, I want to go here next. So if you want to get to the bottom, so it's obviously not Karine Jean-Pierre thinks it's definitely not her fault. Definitely not her fault that there's all these assassination attempts on Trump. It's not Biden's fault. No. CNN gets to the bottom of
rhetoric in this country. But to be clear, you're hearing what Trump.
It's not right. Oh, it's not. There it is.
You're hearing what Trump is saying here. What questions, concerns is this raising for you?
I think ultimately everybody needs to remember that crazy doesn't know a political party or ideology. There is extreme rhetoric on both sides of the political spectrum, and everybody needs to accept a little bit of culpability and responsibility for what becomes inflamed rhetoric in this country. But to be clear, this isn't a Republican or a Democrat issue. This is an American issue, and we should be treating it like that. For President Trump right now, I think that his best course of action would be to be a bit more like he was, this is really hard to believe I'm saying, after his first assassination attempt.
Unbelievable.
Where he was much more unifying. If people want to try and make this political, let other people do that. Be the leader the country needs at a time where this rhetoric has led to 2 attempts to kill Donald Trump. Everybody needs to take cooler heads. The world will not end. This country will not end and cease to exist as a democracy if Kamala Harris wins or if Donald Trump wins.
All right. Okay. All right. Yeah. So it's obviously, partially his fault. Let's hear more from this crew here.
Today, former President Donald Trump is pointing the finger at President Biden and Vice President Harris, blaming them for the apparent assassination attempt against him.
In his first interview since the incident, Trump told Fox News that, quote, their rhetoric is causing me to be shot at, before adding, they are the real threat. We're joined now by Erin Perini. She is a former press communications director for Donald Trump's 2020 campaign and
Former.
a Republican strategist for Axiom Strategies. We're also joined by Tim Hogan. He is a Democratic strategist and former spokesperson for Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign.
It's funny because I don't remember him at all. I remember Dave Podesta. I don't remember this dude at all.
I wonder, Erin, you're hearing what Trump is saying here. What questions, concerns is this raising for you?
I think ultimately everybody needs to remember that crazy doesn't know a
We got this already. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut that twice. Not sure how that happened. Yeah. When you talk about crazy, let's hear more people blaming Trump for being shot at. This is all your fault that you're being shot at. was filed in West Virginia? It was? It was? There's no news reports about it. I Googled Tim Pool defamation news. Tim Pool v. Kamala Harris. Do I have to start checking West Virginia records because it's not anywhere? Is that what I need to do? Ugh. He wouldn't have, if his lawyers would have filed it in state court, because you're better off in state court in West Virginia if you're the Republican. West Virginia court records. Now I'm very curious how long this thing is. Whether I should go through it tonight with you guys. What do they call? They don't call it circuit courts, do they? That would be the federal circuit court. Are they called magistrate courts? What do they call that? Maybe they do call it circuit courts. Yeah, it is circuit court. It is called circuit court. 55 counties, 31 circuits, 75 circuit judges. I'll let you all look at what I'm doing here. So I'm trying to find this thing. So I'm not. You have me very curious. I'm not going to kid you. You piqued my interest. Oops. I really don't want to do this right now. Like, look for this right now. It's not going to be a sponsored thing. It's a magistrate court? Well, if it's Tim Cast or Tim Pool. Last name or corporate name. Let's search by her. Case filing date. We'll make it. This shouldn't got filed today. Nope. Oh, there's going to be too many. I didn't do a beginning case filing date. Stop. Stop. I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting frustrated. Cool. No, I think maybe it was filed yesterday. Let's try Timcast. All right, I'm out. Northern District, Timothy Daniel Poole. Send a screenshot of the header to you. X has a court case and case number. You see? There you go. Thank you, Conley. Let me see what you sent me. They filed it in federal court? Why? 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 Make her get you to federal courts. Why? I never would have even thought for a second it would be filed in federal courts. Why? I don't understand. Well, yeah, I'm not going to find it in West Virginia State Court. It's in United States District Court, Northern District of West Virginia. Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate you. Help me out there. Did he explain why they filed in federal court? Did he give a reason why? I mean, to explain? Look, I'm not familiar, obviously, with defamation law in West Virginia. I'm simply saying you're going to end up coming up under there anyway. The jury pool that you're going to have, in general, you file in West Virginia, look, it's going to be better than a New York federal jury pool. But in state court, you tend to find one reason or another, and I can't speak to the state of West Virginia. Maybe it's different federal court versus state court in West Virginia. I simply know that in New York, you're going to get a more open-minded type of jury in federal court, by and large, than you will in state courts. In state court, they're going to be far more politically leaning. It just happens to work that way. That's why I was surprised that it did that. I'm not saying it's disastrous. I just never would have done that. I would have done it that way. All right. I'll see how my timing is on this show, and I'll try to check it up. If depending on how long it takes me to go through these bills, we'll see. We'll see. I had a couple more videos I wanted to share with you all. I appreciate you calling to my attention, CL, and your help and your help in me finding it, Adrian. Okay. Here's more people trying to figure out why Trump's being targeted for assassination. This is presidential historian Tim Naftali disgustingly claims that Trump made it easier for disturbed minds to go after him because of his rhetoric.
Is that I remember so well July 13th. And I remember the
Makes it sound as if it was like 47 years ago. It was 2 months ago. I remember so well, July 13th.
conversations in the days that followed. I remember President Biden's speech about toning down the rhetoric, and I saw the rhetoric toned down on both sides. And then 20 minutes into his acceptance speech, Donald Trump turned up the volume.
What did he say? What did he say that turned up the volume? What was it?
Not blaming him for what happened. Of course, in our country, you do not decide.
He's gonna tell you what was turning up the volume.
Political disputes through violence. But the problem is that we have too much hate speech right now, and we are creating.
Give me an example. What do you mean by hate speech?
I like this question. Give us an example.
Right, because I want to specifically know, because I think I know what it is, but I'm interested in what you think about this, because I agree with you. I do think we have too much hate speech.
I don't agree with you. I don't think we have enough hate speech. I think we need more hate speech. I think we need a lot more hate speech. And I'm not a hateful person. I just want people to be free to express themselves. I don't think I would engage in what they classify as, maybe they think I do. Do you think, that's an interesting question. Do you think the left would describe what I say as being hate speech? Yeah, of course they would. Of course they would. Right? I mean, they definitely would call this French clown here would definitely call it hate speech, right?
But give me an example.
I would say when you use the term vermin to describe your political opponents.
So you think it's Trump's fault that he got shot? Or got shot? Or
He just said that's what he thought.
Thank you. Scott, I won't step in that trap.
I won't step in that trap. I won't step in it. I won't. I will come back for you. I will come back for you. So emotional. Oh my God. Oh my God. All the eye makeup maybe makes him emotional. I don't know. All that eye makeup must be making him emotional.
Or got shot? Or
He just said that's what he thought.
Thank you. Scott, I won't step in that trap.
I won't.
That's not what I said.
I won't.
There is no place in this country for violence, but
I'll never let go, Jack. I'll never let go. I'll never let go. I won't step in there with you. I won't. What is happening here?
let's be honest about why we have so much tension in this country. When you dehumanize people,
Dehumanize. Okay.
you are using the rhetoric of the 30s. I'm not going to say which country in the 30s.
Obviously means Algiers, perhaps Australia, but it's definitely one. I can narrow it down to one of those two countries. Someone's saying it's a country that starts with a G. Guam? Grenada? I don't even know. I don't even know. Which country are you referring to?
But when you dehumanize people, you make it easier for disturbed minds to do the wrong thing. And let me just remind
That's the most insane thing in the world. I mean, it doesn't sound insane when he says it. I'm not going to kid you. Was that a ploy that was used in propaganda by the likes of Joseph Goebbels? Yes, it was. They would, show imagery of Jews and then rushing along. They would make in fast action, rushing along, a whole bunch of Jews rushing somewhere. And then they would splice in imagery of rats running. There was definitely an attempt to do that. But to take the use of the term vermin, which is clearly an interchangeable term with slime, scum, jackasses, liars, or any other derogatory term, and you start pretending that term is uniquely dehumanizing, it has callbacks to people in 2024, to the rhetoric of nearly a century ago, 9 decades ago, and you're saying that this is now going to make people think that this is now I can do this, and because they're that it's the most insane, ridiculous take in the world. It doesn't make any sense. you could sit there philosophically trying to say how you can see a parallel or relationship, but to start saying that that's the direction people go naturally is ridiculous. It's absurd. Yeah, if you're drilling into people's minds with propaganda movie after propaganda movie, it starts having an influence. But someone using a term which is really interchangeable with the term slime, interchangeable word scum, then now that means, oh, I'm supposed to, like, eradicate them the way I would vermin. It's so stupid. It's such a ridiculous take. And the timing of these takes, in being in the wake of a second assassination attempt of Donald Trump, to try and flip his words back on him as if this is what is causing ratcheting whatever stupidity is such an asinine perspective.
I give something. In 2019, Donald Trump said that the internet is a dangerous avenue. Okay.
It could be.
To radicalize disturbed minds. He was right.
Yeah.
And the Democrats did it very effectively, as we can see from the way they managed to radicalize two people to try and kill him. What does that have to do with him using the term vermin? Nothing at all. This is not an argument based on logic. This is an argument from an emotional young individual. I'm not gonna hazard a guess as to this individual's gender, but it's an emotional argument that's not rooted in any sort of logic and being presented as a logical argument, like insightful. This is a deep, insightful argument.
And he should remind us.
So there you go. There you go. Case 524 CV 11111. Document 187, files 9/17/24. Page ID is 11363. Harris said he was an agent of Trump and calling for extrajudicial executions of political enemies of Trump. Look, maybe there's a basis in maybe there's a cause of action in there which is rooted in federal law, something I would do with hate speech or something like that. I don't know. Maybe there is. I don't know. Which would justify why he would be like, no, I have an extra cause of action. I go to federal court. That would explain it. That would help me understand it a lot more quickly. Obviously, I haven't seen that. I didn't even know about it when the show started. How about, they're all the same. They're all the same term. The idea is to convey someone who should be beneath our contempt. They're trying specifically to pick his word as being uniquely dangerous. Is just ridiculous. I will share with you one individual who is uniquely dangerous. One crazy person. Before we get into our California insane banning free speech laws, the incestuous ideologies of the left, that we have to basically start punishing people who express thought that we don't like.
And boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence, because then boosting.
Criminally charge folks for speech that they don't like. These are the people who are trying to defend democracy. You start criminally, throw people in jail for what they say. Throw them in jail for what they say. I will share with you that we're going to go through these two bills that he passed, and I'll tell you that they're not calling for any sort of criminal sanctions. It's not trying to throw anyone in jail. That's not the objective here, but it is designed to basically silence free speech and do it on an expedited basis under the color of law. So we're going to take a look at these statutes, which I spent a great deal of time trying to present to you in ways that are more easily digestible. And then I ran out of time. I had to start a show because I was already 8 minutes late. But I was working. Before we go into that, I will share with you this that was shared with me right before I started here. This was great. I'm not going to be able to leave the audio up here on this because No one's gonna be able to watch this thing afterwards if you hear the rock song that's playing. But maybe a little splash of it. Maybe a little splash of the audio. It's really good. He's directing, and Joe Biden. You? Oh, okay. I should put that hat up. There you go. You look great. You look really good. That's pretty well done. That's really pretty well done. That's pretty good. That was pretty good. It was shared with me on X, and I appreciate that. That was funny. That was funny. Timcast IRL at 1942. All right. I'm not going to watch his show with you. You all know where to find him. One fun thing is Hillary's still very pissed off she lost the part. It's true. It's true. And that's what's going to happen to Kamala. In 6 weeks, no one's going to remember her anymore. No one's going to remember her. Her career is over. If Trump's rhetoric triggered disturbed minds, they would be going after Harris and Biden, not him. Yes, 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 yes. Obviously. All he's doing is admitting that these are disturbed minds who have been basically radicalized by the left. Because why are they coming after him? Thank you, Deepak. Thank you. All right. Let's get into these statutes. Let's get into them. We're going to start with California Bill 2839 that was passed today. In their desperate attempt, California passed two statutes today, two statutes, which are designed to go after what they call deep fakes. If you're unfamiliar with the term deep fakes, that's a reference to memes that are created, usually through AI, that are designed to make you think you're watching the actual person do something, when really it's been digitally altered or the audio has been altered, usually both together, to make it look like they're saying and doing something that they don't actually say and do. These tend to be very hilarious. In fact, before we get into it, I'll give you a great example of what people call a deep fake from my good friend, Mr. Reagan, who did a phenomenal one that I've shared with you before, but it plays well. It plays well in the context of trying to appreciate what it is. I didn't even see this one yet.
The economy is failing.
This is what they would call a deep fake. This is courtesy of Mr. Reagan. Great guy. He's one of the people who inspired me to start a channel. I'm not exaggerating. I told him that. He was so flattered. I appeared with him on George the Giant Slayer. This is his parody. And he calls it parody, I guess, so that he doesn't get it taken down.
The economy is failing. And if I'm elected.
But this is what's called a deep fake because it's supposed to sound like Kamala talking, even though it's not her talking. It's an AI generated voice.
Elected to 4 more years, things are only going to get worse. And so I, Kamala Harris, want to encourage every little girl in America to follow the same career path as me. Prostitution. When I was a prosecutor back in San Francisco, I was an ambitious young woman. If I thought a man could help me with my career, you'd better believe I was hooking up with him. Oh, yeah. Finally, I met the ultimate sugar daddy, San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown.
Willie Brown, who once dated Harris, says he's excited a black woman is on a presidential ticket.
It was wonderful to have that kind of ongoing daily activity relationship.
Now, Brown is widely credited with helping to launch the senator's career.
Willie was married at the time, and so I was what's called a mistress. As Willie Brown's mistress, I was given lucrative positions in California state government. These were essentially fake jobs, stealing from California taxpayers. For one job, I met just 2 days per month and was paid about $250,000 per year. And so when Donald Trump asks how I'm going to deal with Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong-un, well, let's just say I got a lot of experience dealing with powerful men. Some politicians do backroom deals. I do back rub deals. You know what I'm saying?
Says Mr. Reagan. I shared that one with you. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. Let's see what else he has here. This one I haven't seen yet.
Recently, in a campaign stop in Nevada, I proposed my new, totally original idea: no tax on tips.
And eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
Now, I want to tell you about some of my other totally original ideas that I'll roll out starting on day one. Because of crooked Joe Biden, we have an immigration crisis. But let's call it what it is. It's an invasion. And I propose a totally new solution. I will build a wall. Nobody builds walls better than me. I will build a great wall on our southern border, and I'll have Mexico pay for it. This is my idea, 100% my own personal idea. And another original idea of mine on day one, the largest mass deportation in the history of our country. Totally original idea of mine. And another totally original idea, I'm going to strengthen our military. Joe Biden made our military weak, but I will make our military strong again. On day one, I will totally eliminate DEI. We will terminate every diversity, equity, and inclusion program. And we all know Washington, D.C. is totally corrupt. It's a corrupt swamp. So I'm going to do something no one else has ever thought to do. When I'm president, I'm going to drain the swamp. Again, this is totally my idea, 100% original. I'm going to open up a bribery investigation on crooked Joe Biden because he belongs in prison. Let's drain the swamp. Totally my idea. Only I can fix the economy, build the wall, end the war in Ukraine, and eliminate tax on tips. These are all my ideas, 100% original.
Very good.
Remember when I got shot in Pennsylvania? Yeah, I'm basically an American hero. That really happened to me, for real. Harris Walls 2024. Let's make America great again.
That was a pretty good job. Pretty good job, Chris. Pretty good job. So those are called deepfakes. Because basically the idea is it's supposed to make you think that Kamala is the one who's saying this, even though she's not the one who's saying it. And this is precisely the type of content that makes Gavin Newsom's skin crawl. Let's face it, he lives in California because he'd freeze to death if the temperature ever dropped below 50, like all cold-blooded animals. So he and his legislature in California have rolled out 2 new laws for Californians that are designed to impact the entire country, not simply California, but at the very least, Californians. And it really seems like it's targeted. You can start these bills, and they should start with the words "Dear Elon," because these are things that are already being enacted across all other social media platforms, just not on X. So you can really call these statutes the Dear Elon statutes. And we're going to start with Assembly Bill number 2839. You're going to see I spent a great deal of time color coding, marking these things up to help us zip through, because I don't want you to be bored watching me do like some sort of like legal breakdown. I'm doing this this is the way it would look if I was like back in law school trying to break down a bill. I broke it up into. I didn't just like highlight sections. No. I'm gonna learn you, law students. I'm gonna learn you in case you're still foolish enough to be in law school. Woe unto you and whoever poorly raised you into thinking that was a wise move. But we're gonna look at Assembly Bill number 2839 and break it down for you. I skipped past the boring parts because no one cares what existing law is prohibiting certain distributed blah blah blah. There's laws related to this. This bill would prohibit. What's the objective of this bill? This part I didn't highlight, which I probably should have. But what this bill's objective is, what do we want from this? This bill would prohibit a person, committee, or other entity from knowingly distributing an advertisement or other election communication as defined that contains materially deceptive content. That's what their objective is. Put the objectives in bold, in blue. So that's what you see there. That's what their objective is over here. So let's look at some of the facts that they assess. Breaking down the facts for you in green. Okay, so these are different facts that they assess to be like the state of the world, specifically in the great state of California, or the once great state of California. The now decrepit, falling apart crap fest that is California. California is entering its first ever artificial intelligence AI election in which disinformation powered by generative AI will pollute our information ecosystems like never before. Oh my God. It's going to be like you never saw anything. You never saw this before. Oh, I should get to a couple of these first. I just want to acknowledge you, Republic Room member for 6 months. Let me give you a little blast for that. Let me give you a blast for that. I don't know if I called that out before. Also, Shiloh points out the audacity of HRC after she paid for dossier. I know. She had to like she literally was dealing with Russian disinformation and putting it as if this is factual to try and take down Trump in 2016, an utterly failed ploy by her to use misinformation. Now she wants to throw people in jail. She should be in jail for what she did with her for a number of reasons unrelated to free speech. Coming back to our bill over here, California is entering their first AI election, and voters will not know what images, audio, or video they can trust, because obviously the voters who they're hoping to get voting, if they saw something like what we just saw there, if they saw something like that, there's no way they would know that's not the actual Kamala Harris. It's almost impossible to tell that's not her. How you would think that for sure she's the one who's saying how she's, she got through she ascended to where she is through engaging in prostitution. Obviously, there's no way to know what's real, what's fake. That very much could be real. In a few clicks, using current technology, bad actors now have the power to create false image of what are they focusing on? A candidate accepting a bribe, or fake video of elections official caught on tape saying that voting machines are not secure. And this is a big thing that they seem to be very focused on in California. Much less, this is not simply about memes that they're worried will not enable them to control the narrative leading up to the election. They're worried about memes that will attack the integrity of our election based on the ridiculous fraudulence that we can all expect to see in early to mid-November. So there's a lot of these statutes. In fact, I would surmise that their primary motivation, because they're not worried about Kamala losing California, I would surmise that their objectives here are really to clamp down on people exposing or mocking the blatant fraudulence of elections in various states, including potentially California. In the lead up to the 2024 presidential election, candidates and parties are already creating deepfake images, and these fake images or files can skew election results. They might skew our whole election system is going to go out of whack now. So what's their objective? They put their objective in bold, in blue. What do they want? In order to ensure California elections are free and fair, this is what their justification is. Our objective is to ensure that our elections are free and fair. So California must, for a limited time, before and after elections, prevent the use of deepfakes and disinformation meant to prevent voters from voting and deceive voters based on fraudulent content. And what they're focusing on here, the reason I put this in red is because they're basically saying the information required by this bill is narrowly tailored. They put this in here to reach a conclusion that they're hoping a court that it will inevitably be reviewing this statute will reach. What are we dealing with here? Why do they say it's narrowly tailored? Why would you put that in a statute? Well, they recognize, because they're not stupid individuals, they're evil but not stupid, the people who are drafting this. They recognize that what they are doing here is attempting to limit free speech. So we can focus on, okay, is there a compelling need? And is the remedy as narrowly tailored as possible to suit that need? You have a disastrous, calamitous situation because free speech is governed by or efforts to restrict free speech. Any statute that's designed to inhibit in any way free speech, impinge on free speech, will be scrutinized under what they call strict scrutiny. It's a legal standard called strict scrutiny. What does strict scrutiny mean? Strict scrutiny means that the court who's looking at this statute has to find two things. Otherwise, they either need to revise or strike down the statute. And they must revise or strike it down when you have an impingement on free speech that does not pass strict scrutiny. Strict scrutiny means, number one, you have a compelling need. This is something that must be done, otherwise it will be a terrible calamity. Number two is that the relief that you used was as narrowly tailored as possible to address that need. So we have a really big problem, and the only way we can fix it is with this thing that's affecting free speech, and this is as little as we can do in order to solve that compelling need. Okay? That's what strict scrutiny means. So that's why, but they refer to it as being, when they talk about the remedy and what the bill is compelling, that it has to be narrowly tailored. So in anticipation that this is going to be reviewed by a federal court to assess, and perhaps the Supreme Court to assess whether or not this meets constitutional muster, they try bolstering it in their own statute by saying, this is narrowly tailored. It's narrowly tailored. That's what we call a conclusory statement. Is it actually narrowly tailored? We'll see. We're going to discuss whether or not it's actually narrowly tailored, but they're claiming it's narrowly tailored is like sort of slapping a label on it. This is narrowly tailored. Now, we saw Judge Merchan in New York when he was issuing a gag order on Trump that he labeled his gag order as narrowly tailored when that's a joke. I mean, it was the furthest thing from from narrowly tailored. And over here, I'm going to be arguing, you're going to see me trying to point out how this is not as narrow as it could be. So I got problems with this. But it's narrowly tailored. And what's their objective? What's the compelling need? It's to provide consumers with factual information about the inauthenticity of particular images, audio, video, or text content in order to prevent consumer deception. So this part here is trying to say narrowly tailored, and this part here is trying to say compelling need. This whole section here is put in here. You can, for the purposes of trying to say this is how we're going to try and get past. We're going to try and get past strict scrutiny issues. That's what this is. All right, it's a little too much. But that's why this is here. Okay. What do they put in this bill? A person, committee, or other entity shall not, and when is this covering? It's during the time period set forth in subdivision C, and we're going to look at that shortly. But so it's not at all times. It's not an odd number of years. It's only an even number of years. And we're going to see it's around election time. And they're doing this because they want to try and comport with being as narrowly tailored as possible. So they say, look, this is only an issue when elections are happening during election season. So we're only going to make this the law applicable during election season. If you want to go do fakes of a campaign of some sort of candidate in February, you're totally fine. It's during this election season that's when we're going to clamp down you and say you can't do it, because they're trying to make it as narrow. They're trying to show that it's being narrowly tailored, and it isn't more narrow tailoring. It definitely is. It's less. It's not. There's no restriction when you're outside of this time period. But that's why they reference this time period here, and that's why they created this time period in order to try and be able to justify when they go before a judge that, look, we were as narrowly tailored as we could be. We did this little window around the election. So a person, committee, or other entity shall not knowingly distribute an advertisement or other election communication containing materially deceptive content. What type of materially deceptive content? It's related to a candidate for any federal, state, or local office in California portrayed as saying something that candidate did not do or say. If the content is reasonably likely to harm the reputational electoral prospects of a candidate. And let's be crystal clear here, this includes the president and vice president. So anything you're going to put out there which is harming their reputation by altering their video and audio or imagery is considered a deep fake, and that is you're not allowed to distribute something like that. An elections official portrayed as doing also that's one thing, is the candidate themselves. You can't be mocking them with what they call a deep fake. And I shouldn't put deep fake in quotes. That is a term that's regularly used, and I think it's a fair term. But it's not simply candidates. It's election officials portrayed as doing something in connection with an election that they didn't do or say. Or an elected official doing or saying something in connection with an election. We're starting to get into like different areas here now. Or even you can't make a deep fake about a voting machine, a ballot, a voting site, or other property equipment related to an election portrayed in a materially false way, if the content is reasonably likely to falsely undermine confidence in the outcome of one or more elections. So let's get this clear here. Let's get this clear. You cannot create a deep fake if it affects the way people think of the outcome of an election. So sort of broadening who you can't make a deep fake about. So basically, you can't make a deep fake about like, you know, a Ruby Freeman type, someone working in an election, somebody working in counting ballots. Now, I do want to point this out. Now, when they talk about, it's an interesting thing because they're covering two different elements here. And before 2020, I would have said, this sounds crazy. This sounds like something that no judge would ever go for, as far as saying, like, why would the outcome, why would that be something you can have a deep fake about? Like, how is that affecting the election? And I don't think that's affecting the election. I think that's affecting the reaction to the election, which they don't identify that in this bill or in the others, in its sister bill that was enacted today as well. But I think that they probably would point to January 6th and say, look, if someone used deepfakes to motivate the masses into creating some sort of crazy, dangerous riot, that because they're upset about the election results because they were duped by a deepfake. That's what we're trying to stop. And frankly, certainly in the state of California, I can see how they might not struggle to find judges who would be sympathetic to that. In fact, I would actually go so far as to say it's even possible that that would pass Supreme Court muster, given the fact that 3 of the justices on the Supreme Court are institutionalists. So I'll tell you right now, I don't think that protecting the outcome of an election is something that sounds like it's a very compelling need. But that doesn't mean that you won't find judges who would disagree with me about that, and including perhaps even a majority on the Supreme Court, sadly. I'm telling you what my assessment is. I'm giving you my assessment, personal assessment, and I'm also telling you how I would foresee a court breaking this down and being fully cognizant of the fact that those two are not always going to be the same. So, notwithstanding subparagraph A of paragraph 1, so all this is talking about, by the way, disseminating. You cannot disseminate this stuff. You can't kick it out there. You can't put it on X. You can't put it on YouTube. You can't put it on Facebook. You can't put it on some smaller social media provider that's considered something you're not allowed to do. Notwithstanding subparagraph A, this does not apply to a candidate portraying themselves with a deep fake. This is a really interesting little wrinkle they threw in here, where they basically say you can make a deep fake of yourself if you like. So let's say Trump wants to make something like, or someone working for Trump wants to make some sort of commercial of him flying off like Superman and, punching out communism or something like that. So that would be okay. That's provided that you say this blank has been manipulated. And you have to, in the blank, you put an image, audio, video. You have to basically spell out what was manipulated. That's not what I want to do. You have to say that this image or audio or video was manipulated, and then you're allowed to, that would be okay. It's hard to understand how that would be derogatory, because they did say it has to be something that is going to undermine the confidence in the election or likely to harm the reputation. It's hard to imagine any candidate putting out something themselves which would fall into something that's prohibited in the first place. So it's kind of stupid. This is kind of a stupid thing, but it's California. What do you want? For visual media, the text of the disclosure shall appear in a size that is easily readable by the average viewer, and no smaller than the largest font size of other text appearing in the visual media. So this is if you're doctoring your own thing. In that case, you have to basically say that it's been doctored, and it's got to be in a nice large font. And if there's no other font in there, in that case, the disclosure shall appear in a size that's easily readable. And if it consists of only audio, this is insane. The disclosure shall be read in a clearly spoken manner and in a pitch that can be easily heard by the average listener when at the beginning, at the end, and if the audio is greater than 2 minutes, interspersed within the audio at intervals of not greater than 2 minutes each. Not greater than 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes, you have to be like, this is an astonishing thing. This is an astonishing thing. So if someone uses AI, to like mock Kamala on like some sort of like in that case, they have to basically say this has been this in some sort of like debate, like an X debate. There was an X debate between an imitator of Trump named Farash. I think Stephen Farash is his first name. I'm not sure, and an imitator of Kamala Harris, who both are very talented in those capacities. And there's nothing. The implication here is if you're using your own voice, that you don't have to say anything. The way I read this statute is if you're using your own voice, so Stephen Farash, if he goes out there and he talks like Trump, let's say, or Alec Baldwin goes out there, does a Trump imitation that's designed to make him look bad. I don't think that that's a problem under this because it's not AI generated. It has to be something that's being manipulated. So if you're wondering, like, we're not going to be able to see parodies anymore, well, you'll be able to see parodies. The idea is they're trying to clamp down on deep fakes. We're using actual visual, audio, or imagery of the candidates and altering it digitally. But parodies, it seems like, would not be banned by this based on how I'm reading it. But if you are using digital to alter, let's say you're like me, you can't do a good Trump impression. I can't do any sort of Kamala impression, thank God. So if I used AI to make fun of her the way Mr. Reagan did, that he would have to basically have a big sign up there that says this is whatchamacallit. Well, no, let me think this through. He wouldn't be allowed to do that in California. That would be something you cannot do in California. I think that deepfake would actually be something that would be prohibited by this. He's taking her voice. Only the candidate can make fun of themselves. He's obviously not part of Kamala's team. So they can make fun of themselves. I'll tell you right now, under this statute, I don't think that Mr. Reagan can distribute this in California, which is sad for Californians. Very sad. Even in theory, and this is part of the part where I think it's not narrowly tailored and could be more narrowly tailored. Where would be the harm if it says this is a parody? This is digital voice of Kamala Harris. If there was something like that, because I'm going to be real with y'all. Okay, let's just take out this election, because this is a law that'll be on the books theoretically 50 years from now. So if we put this election aside, you can understand how AI may quickly develop into something that is powerfully compelling and deceptive, where there's really no way to know if this is real video or it's just completely manufactured by AI. It's not too hard to foresee us getting to that realm within the next couple of years, certainly within the next decade for sure. So now we're dealing with elections where you have people who hate each other, who are looking to pull out all the stops to make the other side look as terrible as possible. It's not very difficult to imagine a scenario where there would be one AI video after another that both sides would be creating of the other. And I mean both sides. It doesn't have to be the actual campaign themselves. It could just be independent folks who are doing it in order to try and push people into thinking that the other side's candidate is crooked, evil, self-destructive, terrible human being. So I don't think that leads to a healthy America. I can understand the concerns that are being expressed here. I'm all for free speech. I am 100% for free speech. I can understand the concerns that they're trying to address here. Take out Trump, take out Kamala. Just imagine candidate A versus candidate B. And just for the sake of ease and confusion, assume that both candidates are people you can't stand. Okay? They both are terrible candidates. All right? Imagine that it's Romney versus Obama. They're just lousy, awful, terrible candidates. It's McCain versus Obama. Terrible candidates on both sides. You hate both of them. You don't really have any sort of preference. Okay? If it's Coolidge versus, I don't know, McDuff, I don't care. The point is that you have two candidates, you hate both of them. And you see that one of the candidates there is making one AI video after another, making the other person look like they're literally giving over secrets to the Russians. And they're completely manufactured. They're not real at all. I think that you would say, that's kind of insane. It's kind of insane that we should live in a world where nobody has any idea what the truth is. And that's going to be something that can have, obviously, a dramatic impact on our elections. So, as much as I'm a very strong free speech advocate, and you could certainly try and call these AI things free speech, even if it's AI doing most of the work, but you can certainly try and call each of them free speech, and I can understand the argument that it is free speech. There is a certain point where it's like, how do we even know what the hell is real anymore? And the consequences of a successful deception could be very dramatic on the impact it has on America. And do we really want to be living in a country where there's one AI deepfake after another and nobody knows anything about any of these candidates anymore because both of them are just continually churning out one deceptive AI thing after another? And I guess another deceptive AI thing that they could have that's self-promotional is they could have AI imagery of them running into a burning house and saving a bunch of kittens. So you don't want to have that either in order to help bring their own nobility and try and portray themselves as being more noble than they actually are. It doesn't have to be kittens. It could be puppies. It could be orphans. You understand the point. So I can understand, as much as like I'm a free speech, very, very staunch free speech advocate, really staunch free speech advocate, I can understand the concept of saying at a certain point there has to be guardrails in order to ensure that people are actually voting correctly. Those guardrails to me make a lot more sense when we're talking about pre-election than post-election. The post-election part I have a much, much graver problem with. Because your concerns that people are going to see stuff and then they're going to react to it and then they're going to if you have concerns about trusting the integrity of our elections, there's a lot of steps you would take before this one. A lot of steps. To me, this is not a good faith attempt to protect the integrity. You want to protect the integrity, you know what? Have transparency about the integrity of your elections. That's a lot less impinging on free speech than worrying about deep fakes embarrassing you. So to the extent that this thing relates to, now I think that that's definitely my position with respect to post-election or stuff related to election workers and all these other folks that, or secretaries of state and their stupid, ridiculously terrible, evil work when it comes to these elections. I don't think that should be why should that be beyond mockery? Why should that be some sort of exception to the First Amendment? Doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't mean it won't make sense to the Supreme Court. I certainly expect it'll make sense to the District Court in the Southern District of California or the Northern District if this is brought in Sacramento. I can see this making sense to the Ninth Circuit, which is the appellate circuit for the West Coast, including California. And I wouldn't be shocked to see it making sense to the likes of an Amy Coney Barrett, Matt Kavanaugh, or Justice John Roberts. sadly. I can see them saying that even about the post-election stuff. I don't think it should be. I think it's ridiculous. But I can see them saying, we all saw what happened on January 6th. When let's say that was all ginned up by deepfakes. How would you feel about that? I'd much rather not step on free speech. That's how I feel about that. That's how I feel about that. I'm curious about your take on that, though. Do you think... I want to start with this premise. I'm going to actually put a poll up here. Do you think that the threat of deepfakes... I'm not talking about current deepfakes. Let's assume that deepfakes are able to be so well developed that there's no way to know if this is real or not. I mean, they just completely, they get completely clean in being able to contort the speaker's face, match the words, so that it's like 98 out of 100 people would be fooled into thinking it's real. So, do you think that that's something that should be a concern that warrants affecting our free speech rights? Warrants restrictions on free speech or not? If you think it should be, and for the Rumble folk, I'm going to put a poll up over here in. I'm going to put a poll up over here in YouTube, since I can't do that. I want to get your opinion in Rumble. If you can see a scenario where you think there should be some sort of restrictions, simply on pre-election, not post-election. We'll deal with post-election afterwards. But if you think there should be a restriction, any kind, there could be situations where we need restrictions on deep fakes pre-election. Drop a 1 in the chat. And if you think there's no such thing as a situation like that, drop a 2 in the chat. And don't feel peer pressured into going along with the 2. It's very, some people be like, "Ooh, you're so based." Like, give me your thought. You're trying to create a society here that's a healthy society. Do you think we should ever restrict free speech of AI deepfakes? Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of 2. Precursor of the P. Diddy tapes. I'm really not following the P. Diddy thing. I know it's probably stupid. I should be, but I so care. I care so little about P. Diddy. I can't even tell you. Thought crimes. There you go. So if you're doing it online, but you're not in California, well, we're going to talk about the punishment that they lay out here. Government does not have a great record on truth. That's definitely true. But we're not talking about here this being a ministry of misinformation. It's a matter of, are you using AI to manipulate a candidate to basically make them look like a fool? You're either using AI or you're not. So you're either using it to digitally alter their voice or appearance. So if that's the yardstick, it's not a matter of the court or the state saying this is true, this is not true. It's a matter of you're taking these steps, and these steps are designed to affect the truth of what's being presented and trick people into thinking that this is actually the way things happen when it's not. Coup 2.0 is going to be the way they think. How do you think it's going to be? What is that doing? Well, lots of parallels to Epstein. That's why I should care about P. Diddy. All right. You're saying he's a vile PDF? Each candidate's handwriting is unique. We don't ban typewriters to avoid people making fake letters. I'm not sure that parallel is a fair parallel, though. I agree with you. Ministry of Truth is inherently evil in concept. And look, I start with a premise that anything Newsom says or does was inspired by Satan. I'm not even talking about this California law, but this California law should give us pause into thinking, like, is this something that there are scenarios where I can see done properly? This is, to ignore the peril or the obvious danger that of what is likely to not what will happen, what inevitably will happen from both sides. It seems kind of silly. I may cover it in New York City. I understand it's in federal court in New York City, and I may go down there and cover it. I may. At this stage, it's so early in it that, like, the different charges and things of that nature, it's very hard for me to be geared up on. I may go down there and cover it. So that's it. Okay, so there's two different things here. There's the rule, and then there's the application. If you tell me you don't like the rule because of your expectations about the application, I can understand that concern because the government has a terrible history of being ridiculous about how they apply it. I haven't gotten into how this thing gets applied and the outcome of it. Because this is not like there's a fine here. And one of the things I can appreciate is they didn't put a fine in, other than what could be a very perilous fine, which is the cost of attorney's fees. That's a little bit disconcerting, and I'll explain to you why as I get to that. Do you believe in national security anymore? Yeah, I do. And while at the same time being more distrustful than ever of those carrying out national security. If anyone ever curious to where this disinformation crap came from, look no further than the UN. They've had it posted on their website. Interesting. I was unaware of that. All right. Let's go further into this new law that went into effect. There's a second law also, which is similar, but not the same. We'll work through that one a little quicker. All right. So far we have basically, you cannot do a deepfake AI and distribute. You cannot distribute a deepfake AI of a candidate making them look bad during a certain window of time, which we haven't gotten to the window of time yet. We're going to get there very soon. Notwithstanding paragraph 1, this section does not apply to an advertisement or other election communication which has AI deepfake stuff that constitutes satire or parody if the communication includes a disclosure stating this has been manipulated for purposes of satire or parody. Ah, so this is a little bit, that's definitely a lot better. That's a lot better, right? All of a sudden, this becomes like a little bit of a different thing. So when you see Mr. Reagan here, when he does his thing, where was it? We see when he actually calls it ad parody number 3. So when he calls it ad parody 3, so they're saying this is satire parody if the communication includes disclosure saying this has been manipulated for purposes of satire parody. The disclosure shall comply with the requirements set forth in subparagraphs A and B of paragraph 2. So over here, right away now, they're opening up a doorway to make it a lot more palatable, where it's like, look, if you tell us that this is satire or parody, we're not trying to clamp down on that. This is a very, very healthy exception to the law they're trying to pass here. And you see, even on X, you know, Elon Musk doesn't allow you to spoof that you're someone who you're not unless you articulate that it's satire or parody. Because we're in an age now where you really need that. So to me, this is a very, very significant exception, which does a lot to make this law digestible. Number 4, a person, community, or other entities shall not, during the time period set forth, do either the following: remove the disclosure required, so don't try and hide it after the fact, or knowingly republish any content subject to paragraph 2 or 3 without the required disclosure. So now you're not even allowed to retweet it unless it's been done properly. Violation of subparagraph A is evidence of intent to knowingly distribute. It's that we assume that you did it. What time period are we talking about? 120 days before any election in California. So basically, you're talking about from July 4th until an election, roughly. And then for people in items set forth in paragraphs B and D, the election workers, for 120 days before election through 60 days after the election, inclusive. So even the time after the election for 2 months, we don't want you creating a deep fake that's going to have you questioning the legitimacy of the election workers. Okay. And again, there is an exception if you say this is satire or parody. A recipient material descriptive content distributed in violation of section, candidate, or committee participating in selection may seek in. So what's the relief you get if someone violates it? You can seek conjunctive or other equitable relief and an award prevailing plaintiff reasonable attorney fees and costs. So if Mr. Reagan were to produce that content and not call it parody, distribute it in California, they can get an injunction against him and then make him pay the attorney's fees that they had to pay in order to get that injunction. I'm going to tell you right now, injunctions are mighty expensive. Plaintiff's fees. Injunctions are not mighty expensive. When you talk about attorney's fees, those add up very, very, very quickly. You're not talking a couple of $1,000s. It's going to be, you're going to be paying in the tens, if not hundreds, very quickly. the other thing I want to highlight here is in the civil action alleging a violation, the plaintiff has the burden of establishing the violation through clear and convincing evidence. So we're not going to assume that it's deepfake. You have to prove that it's a deepfake. And it does not apply to broadcasting station that broadcasts any materially deceptive content prohibited by this section as part of a bona fide newscast, news interview, news documentary, commentary of general interest, or on-the-spot coverage of bona fide news events. So, if I were to see something, I think that I have a good faith defense here under subsection E, even if I'm sharing this in California, and I was sharing something that was a deepfake, and I'm sitting here trying to provide, news and news documentary or commentary. So that would not be something that that would not be a violation of California law, as I understand Section E. This section doesn't apply broadcasting when it's paid to broadcast materially deceptive content in either following circumstances exists. Now, if it's paid to broadcast materially deceptive content, and the broadcast, they can show that it has a prohibition disclaimer requirements that are consistent with the requirements in this section. Meaning, let's say you have some sort of comedy show and people know it's a comedy show, then you don't have to go through the whole thing as far as saying it's a parody, I guess. Or if federal law requires you to air advertisements and legally qualified candidates or prohibits the broadcast station from censoring or altering the message. What do we mean by advertisement? Advertisement means any general public communication that's authorized or paid for the purpose of supporting or opposing a candidate for office. Deepfake means audio or visual media that is digitally created or modified such that it would falsely appear to be reasonable to a real person to be an authentic record of the actual speech or conduct of the individual depicted in the media. And there you go. So, do you guys think that this law is a problem? We see the exceptions, we see the objectives. Do you think that this is constitutionally viable? Do you think it violates the Constitution? In order to come to a strict scrutiny question here, it has to be something that's it's got to be a compelling need and narrowly tailored as much as possible. So the compelling need that they claim is we want to maintain the integrity of our elections and the public confidence in the elections. So the first thing you have to ask yourself is public confidence in our elections a compelling need? Is having integrity of our elections a compelling and informed voter body, properly informed, not misled? Is that misled through digitally altered? So you're not going to. So basically, protecting our voter body from being misinformed through digitally altered material, I think you can probably get that to be a compelling need. Once it's a compelling need, now you have to establish that their remedy is as narrow as possible. What steps do they take to make it narrow? Well, they said it's only during this window of time. And they said that if it's for parody or satire, you can fix it by saying it's for parody or satire. And they said that if you're doing it to yourself, then you can just say that this was digitally altered and you'll be fine with it. If you're doing it to make yourself look good. So if you think it's not sufficiently tailored, you need to sort of express how is this too broad? And I think that if we look at this as two different statutes, not that it's one statute, but if we break up the pre-election versus post-election, I certainly think that the way they did this with respect to the pre-election, this is almost certainly going to carry, the court will almost certainly recognize this as being compelling need, narrowly tailored. I think it's going to work, certainly on the pre-election stuff. And arguably, if I was sitting as a judge in that circumstance on certainly the pre-election stuff, because of the exceptions they created for satire and parody, as long as you label it as satire and parody, if you think that it can be more narrowly tailored, you need to tell me how could it be more narrowly tailored. Think about Orson Welles back in the day of War of the Worlds only with AI. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, maybe 2 years before AI is indistinguishable. MLS, God of Law. How are you, brother? Joe, check out Novak versus City of Parma, Ohio, 2022. I'm going to bring you in here. I'm going to send you a link. I haven't seen you in forever, and I kind of miss hanging out with you. I don't know if you're free to come in here, but I am going to send you a link. I haven't had anyone on this show in months. Literally, I don't think I had a single guest in months. I'm trying to remember. Can any of you remember the last time I had a guest on here? I don't remember ever having a guest on here. It's really been months. I think when I was breaking. No, I don't. I'm trying to remember the last time. So you might stand me up, and I won't be mad at you if you do. But. But I did send you a link. So this only applies to posts actually made in California. Well, they have to be distributed in California. So if you distribute it, it's an interesting question you're asking, Tyler. The implicit question is, if I distribute it and Californians receive it, can they come after me? I don't know. It's not clear. It's not clear where the jurisdiction would be over you if you're not in California. Could they try to extradite a Texan? Try that in Texas. MLS says it'll be in 15 minutes. So, he wants me to do homework here. Do homework. Look up Novak versus City of Parma. What are you asking of me? What are you asking of me? I want to check out how my poll's going here. 77% of you say no, we should never restrict free speech of AI deepfakes to protect elections. Wow. Wow. You guys are hardcore. You guys are hardcore. I'm pretty proud of that. I'm pretty proud of that. You're hardcore. Even if we have an exception for satire, that you can put it up there as long as you label it as being satire or parody? I feel you. I feel you. Slippery slope. Labeling satire destroys it. I'll be frank with you. When I went through the bill, I was trying to cover ground. This thing only dropped an hour or two before I came live, and I only found out about it at 8:30. So I didn't have a great time to deal of time to break through it. I actually missed the satire part. I only saw that when I was watching with you, and satire definitely changes it dramatically for me. Look at Newsom's tweet. Even parody is not okay. Let me see that. You sent me a tweet. This is what Angela shared with me. I just signed a bill to make this illegal in the state of California. You can no longer knowingly distribute an ad or other election communications of content that contain materially deceptive content, including deepfakes. Manipulating a voice in an ad like this one should be illegal. I'll be signing a bill. That ad that he shared out, what was he talking about? That was, he shared out Chris Reagan, Mr. Reagan's first ad, which I think did not specify that it was parody. And I agree with you. It's much funnier without. It does damage the joke if you have to say this is a joke. It does damage the joke a great deal. It says Kamala Harris ad parody now. I don't think it did initially. This was the first one.
I, Kamala Harris, am your Democrat candidate for president because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility at the debate. Thanks, Joe. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist. I may not know the first thing about running the country, but remember, that's a good thing if you're a deep state puppet. I had 4 years under the tutelage of the ultimate deep state puppet, a wonderful mentor, Joe Biden.
I think it's pretty sick that you know, as I'm looking at this, I think it's pretty sick that something that is obviously a joke is something that you have to be like, this is a joke. It's pretty stupid. It's pretty stupid.
Joe taught me rule number 1, carefully hide your total incompetence. I take insignificant things and I discuss them as if they're significant. And I believe that exploring the significance of the insignificant is in itself significant.
Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time, and there is such great significance to the passage of time.
Another trick is trying to sound black. I pretend to celebrate Kwanzaa, and in my speeches, I always do my best Barack Obama impression.
So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
And okay, look, maybe my work addressing...
She is trying to do Barack Obama with that. That's definitely a desperate attempt to try. I know Donald Trump's type. Who decides if it's convincing fake? How? Well, see, now we start. There's a famous justice who once said, I think it was in the field of copyright law, when he was like, but it might have been in free speech context, where he said back in the day when pornography was continually when there were a lot of states that had laws against pornography, that there was one justice who famously said, I can't tell you the difference between art and pornography, but I know it when I see it. The reality is, if you're going to be making rules, this is why I think 77% of you say we shouldn't be making any rules. But the reality is that when you're making rules, you sort of have to make like a bright line rule. Otherwise, it's incredibly subjective. And when it's incredibly subjective, then you know it has to, by definition, be applied unfairly. The brighter the line of the rule, the less likely that it will be subject to subjective interpretation by a twisted judge. It's just harder for them to do it. They have a lot less leeway, as opposed to like, do you think this looks like something that's that's convincing or a convincing fake or not. That's where things become very, very subjective. How 2000 didn't understand parody each other. That's true. That's true. A quick look over here. Make sure I didn't miss anything that popped in here. I want to get to the second statute that was passed today. The point that I'm getting at is this. Do I like this law being passed? No. Do I understand the concept of there being a need for it that could be in good faith? Someone in good faith could try and make a claim for this, for justification. I can understand them saying compelling need and narrowly tailored. But it does ruin the joke. It's definitely true. And they went after Elon specifically with the next statute. Like I said, they could have called this one Dear Elon. Let's look at the next bill. The first one we looked at was 2839. This is 2655. Both of these were passed today. This bill to be known as, you're going to see it's very similar, but it's got a different audience. The last audience that was directed at was people who were distributing it. This one is aimed at social media companies. This bill to be known as Defending Democracy from Deepfake Deception Act of 2024, quote, who's it aimed at? Large online platforms. What's their purpose? They want to block the posting of materially deceptive content related to elections in California during specified periods before and after an election. How are they going to do that? Well, it's going to require a large online platform to label certain additional content inauthentic, fake, or false during specified periods before and after an election. So we're going to force these social media companies to block deepfakes by labeling them as deepfakes. It would require Elon, you can just change, you can actually change this language here of a large online platform. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, what does he mean by that? He means Elon Musk. To develop procedures for California residents to report content that has not been blocked or labeled. So you have to first develop these procedures that they can be reported. Then the bill would also authorize candidates for elected office or attorney general or anything else, and the district attorney or a city attorney to get injunctive relief against a large online platform for non-compliance. And it would assign precedence, meaning you can, when they say assign precedent, means when you go to court, you're going to go to the front of the line in the court. Because this is such an important, timely thing. What's the exception? It exempts regularly published online newspaper, magazine, or other periodical of general circulation. So it's not applying to the Babylon Bee. That's what I understand. That's specified requirements. That's how I understood this to me when I was looking at it at first. But I ran out of time, so we can look at, we'll be looking at who's exempt in more detail together. The bill would also exempt content that is satire or parody. And this is an important exemption, right? So if it's satire or parody, so did what Elon shared out was satire or parody. So no, it doesn't cover this at all. I should share that out. Well, I think he's referring to 2839, not 2655. The one we just read. I didn't do that right. All right. It also is going to be affecting Section 35 of the Code of Civil Procedure. That's the first thing it's going to do. It's going to affect Section 35. Let's look at what it does to Section 35, because there's two different things happening in this bill at the same time. We already took care of 2839. 2655 is going to affect two things. Number one is it's going to affect the Section 35 of the Code of Civil Procedure. What does that mean? What does that mean? I never heard of Section 35 of California's Code of Civil Procedure. Well, what it says is that when you have proceedings of cases involving the registration or denial registration of voters, the certificate of denial of certificate of candidates, or certification of ballot measures, when you come to these election type things, cases involving those things of certification of candidates, certification of denial of ballot measures, all that sort of thing, will be placed on the calendar in the order of the day they're filing and shall be given precedence. So you have more than one, whoever files first gets in there, but otherwise they get priority. So that's number one. That's all this Section 35 part is doing. It moves them to the front of the line, that if you're bringing some election-related issue, including this deepfake thing, that goes to the front of the line so that the California court can address it quickly. That's number one. Now we have introduced to you the Defending Democracy from Deepfake Deception Act of 2024. So what facts we're going to focus on here? Well, again, this is a repeat of what they took from 2655, from 2839. We have California is entering an AI age. It's going to be polluting our information ecosystems like never before. Voters are stupid. They're not going to know what images or video they can't trust. They can't tell what's parody from satire or whatever. They don't know. And then you got bad actors. Those bad actors. You know who we mean by that. Well, this is California. You know who we mean by bad actors. It's their way of trying to take a knock at Ronald Reagan, obviously. Bad actors now have the power. I don't know. Maybe it's aimed at Jerry Seinfeld. Bad actors now have the power to create a false image of candidate accepting a bribe, or fake video of election officials caught on tape saying that voting machines are not secure, or to generate the governor's voice telling millions of Californians the voting site has changed. This is a funny one. This is a funny one. That's pretty funny. I missed that before when I was reading through this quickly. That's pretty funny. And since we recognize this can spread to millions and undermine the trust in ballot counting process, this is a conclusion they're reaching. We think this can undermine the trust in ballot counting process. What are we doing? We're giving you our narrowly tailored relief. Hopefully this will withstand court scrutiny. And what's our objective? To provide consumers with factual information about the inauthenticity of particular images, audio, and video. And it's applying specifically for a limited time before and after elections. That's part of the who and when part. For purposes of the chapter, we have the following definitions. I don't know why in this chapter they put definitions early when they put it late, but election communication means a general public communication that is not an advertisement and that concerns any of the following: a candidate, voting or refraining from voting, canvass of the vote, voting machines, proceedings or processes in electoral college in California. Who's it dealing with? Large online platform means a public-facing internet website. X. It means X. That's what they're talking about, X. Or a search engine that had at least 1 million California users. What search engine doesn't have 1 million California users? Seriously. I can make one in my basement that have 1 million California users. Okay. Materially deceptive content means audio or visual media that's digitally created or modified. Does not include any audio or visual that contains only minor modifications that do not significantly change the perceived contents or meaning of the content. So the reason I put this one in gray is to point out like what's being accepted here. It's not part of this whole thing. If you're enhancing the video, that could technically be considered digitally altering. You raise the volume on it, the brightness to have better color and clarity. That's not considered digitally altering for purposes of this statute. Any large online platform shall develop and implement procedures. What are we asking you to do? So Elon, you have to develop and implement procedures for the use of state-of-the-art techniques, whatever the hell that means, but state-of-the-art techniques to identify and remove materially deceptive content if all the following conditions are met. It's reported, and it's any of the following. It's materially deceptive of any of the following. A candidate portrayed as saying something that they didn't do. An elections official doing or saying something they didn't do. An elected official portrayed as saying something that influences an election. Like a governor saying, we're no longer voting on election day. We're going to be voting on Thursday afterwards. And again, the content has to be posted during the applicable time period, which we're going to see is going to track the same time period from the other statutes of 120 days or versus 120 plus 60 if it's regarding the integrity of the election. And a large online platform knows or acts with reckless disregard for the fact that the content meets the requirements of this section. If a post is determined to meet the requirements for removal, any large online platform shall remove the post upon that termination, but no later than 72 hours after a report is made. You have to get on this within 3 days. That's the timing for when you have to do this. You have 3 days to get this thing in compliance with California law. Any large online platform shall identify. You got to go searching for it. These posts using discovering being alerted to the posting or reposting of any identical or substantially similar materially deceptive content. Notwithstanding subparagraph A, it does not apply to a candidate for elective office who does this to themselves. This is exactly what we saw in 2839. That if you do it to yourself, you're allowed to do that as long as you clarify that you altered the image, audio, and video. Also tracking from 2839 that when it comes to visual media, you have to put a notification in there. This is if you do it to yourself. So in that case, you have to put this visual thing in there saying, hey, I altered the video. And if it's audio, it's the same stupid thing where every 2 minutes, if the audio is greater than 2 minutes in length, you have to keep saying it every 2 minutes. Any large online platform shall remove the content to the extent required. What's the time period? Time period is, again, the same time period as before, 120 days before election. And if it's regarding the integrity of the election, it's 120 plus 60 after the election. Look who I got here. The man, the myth, the legend. MLS. I don't hear you at all. There's no audio. I'm patient. I'm gonna handle some of these first while you figure that out. I heard something for a second. What's the X handle that made the Kamala things?
Yeah.
You sound very faint. but I hear something now.
Hang on, I'll be right back.
There you go. But he just left. I think that's Mr. Reagan. He goes by. Let me see if I can dig that up for you. He's on my friends list. Shouldn't take me that long to find it. This is him here. Mr. Reagan USA is the X handle who made it. So there you go. All right. Any large online platform. Oh, wait, what do we got here? Let me move through. Well, I guess Michelle Obama can never run as the first woman president in California then. So no worries about it, her. Corn Pop. Been a while since I've seen you. Good to see you. Thank you for the super stickers. Very kind of you. Very, very kind of you. I appreciate that. Appreciate the gratuity. All right. So they're mandating that all these platforms have to develop and implement procedures. And if all the following conditions are met, the content is reported and it's part of what we identified up above in 20513. That was just over here, this part here. But it's posted outside the applicable time period. In that case, and it appears within an advertisement election communication is not subject to 20513. So if you have, I'm trying to figure out what they're trying to do with this part here because I haven't looked at this part yet. Any large online platform have developed procedures to identify these deepfakes if it's reported and it's part of the stuff we identified above, but outside the time window, or it appears within an advertisement or election communication is not subject to 20513. And the large online platform knows or acts with reckless disregard of the fact that it's materially deceptive. I don't even know what the hell they're trying to say with this part here. I'm not going to kid you, this is very confusing. If a post is determined to meet the requirements for labeling pursuant to subdivision A, any large online platform shall label the post upon that determination, but no later than 72 hours. Oh, they just want you to label it. That's what they're looking for. It's a deep fake. That's what they're looking for. All right. And then you have to say that this video has been manipulated, this picture has been manipulated, etc. So that's what they're imposing upon these platforms like X to say this has been manipulated. Okay. A large online platform shall provide an easily accessible way for California residents to report to that platform content that should be removed pursuant to Section 20513 or pursuant to Section 20514. So you have to be able to give us a way to get it off of your platform. Ridiculous. The large online platform shall respond to the person who's making the report within 36 hours of that report, describing any action taken or not taken by the large online platform with respect to the content. A candidate for elective office who has made a report and has either not made a response within 36 hours or disagrees with the response and their failure to do what they're asking him to do within 72 hours can go and get injunctive or other equitable relief. That means going to the court and getting a TRO to get the action, to get that thing taken down. Let's see how your audio is now.
Okay, is this any better?
That's perfect.
All right, great. I was in Streamlabs, and I always, whenever I mess with stuff in Streamlabs, it screws up and
Dude, actually, you fixed it like right. as you were jumping off. I was like, it's good, and then you were gone.
Oh well, I like restarted the whole system and everything. But hey, no, the reason why I pointed to that case, are you familiar at all with that case?
No, not at all. I had no idea what case you're referring to.
So this is a guy in Ohio.
You said Novak versus City of Parma.
Yeah. So this is a guy in Ohio who created a fake parody Facebook account for his local police department and started trolling him with it. And he would post things up there like, today is like Don't Feed the Homeless Day, and he would have these little memes and stuff like that. It was obviously parody, but the police ended up charging him or arresting him, and the prosecutor charged him with like using a computer to impersonate a police officer or falsify something or other. I can't remember exactly what it was, and he was ultimately acquitted. And then he brought a federal lawsuit against the local police, and that got dismissed at the local level, at the district court level, for government immunity, essentially qualified immunity. And then he went to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, and they said the same thing, but they did a little bit of a First Amendment analysis, a little bit, and they're like, "This is clearly parody, and we understand why it would be a crime to say impersonate a police officer or IRS department or something like that, but it doesn't pass the government immunity thing." And then it went to they filed to the Supreme Court a writ of certiorari, and that's where the Onion filed an amicus brief in 2022. You need to read this brief. Or did you read that brief? Yeah.
I think that was that where they wrote a brief. We're saying like basically like since the days of Jefferson, like right?
Yeah. We've been world renowned. We have 4.7 trillion readers. All this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they
that's
actually
that
submitted that was the Supreme Court brief, I thought, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was the Supreme Court. It was an amicus brief, and unfortunately, the Supreme Court rejected it in 2023, so we didn't get to hear the outcome. The reason I point to that is because the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals does make
your audio cut out. Oh no.
Yeah,
now you're good. Now you're good.
But the government makes some good arguments as to why you don't necessarily want to allow this kind of thing. If it's too realistic, I guess, just for the sake of your discussion. But that's why I pointed it out, because I thought it was an interesting case.
Yeah. This is the brief he's referring to here, which is it's an amazing amicus brief. It's really great. This is so good.
I wish I could write like this.
In the interests of the amicus curiae, no counsel for any party authored this brief in whole or in part, and no counsel or party made a monetary contribution intended to fund the preparation and submission of this brief. Timely notice the intent to file this amicus brief was provided to all parties, and all parties have consent to the filing of this brief. The Onion is the world's leading news publication, offering highly acclaimed, universally revered coverage of breaking national, international, local news events. Rising from its humble beginnings as a print newspaper in 1756, The Onion now enjoys a daily readership of 4.3 trillion and has grown into the single most powerful and influential organization in human history. In addition to maintaining a towering standard of excellence to which the rest of the industry aspires, The Onion supports more than 350,000 full and part-time journalism jobs in its numerous news bureaus and manual labor camps stationed around the world. And members of its editorial board have served with distinction in an advisory capacity for such nations as China, Syria, Somalia, and the former Soviet Union. On top of its journalistic pursuits, The Onion also owns and operates the majority of the world's transoceanic shipping lanes, stands on the nation's leading edge on matters of deforestation and strip mining, and proudly conducts tests on millions of animals daily. The Onion's keen, fact-driven reportage has been cited favorably by one or more local courts, as well as Iran and the Chinese state-run media. Along the way, The Onion's journalists have garnered a sterling reputation for accurately forecasting future events. One such coup was The Onion's scoop revealing that a former president kept nuclear secrets strewn around his beach home's basement 3 years before it even happened. Really good. It's really, really good.
Yeah, But is okay. So is this parody or is this a deep fake? You know, sometimes onion stories get posted out there as real stories, right?
Yeah.
So do they need to say, and in fact, I think the Onion goes on to say in that brief that it's not appropriate. You kind of ruin the joke if you like announce ahead of time like this is parody. You know, and so I thought that that's what was rolling through my head when I was listening to you read through this statute.
That it's basically ruining free speech by saying you have to tell us, you have to label it for us.
Yeah. Yeah, you're ruining the joke.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is. But I want to try and play devil's advocate here and basically say, like, can you not envision nefarious actors not at all doing it as a joke, but trying to basically tilt elections using AI in ways that will basically mislead millions of people at a time about someone? You know, so here's video of candidate A engaged in this, basically, whipping, setting puppies on fire.
Right, and that's essentially what the circuit court, the Sixth Circuit Court, said in that case. And in fact, I think it's even like quoted. It was, we could foresee the misuse of it if well, first of all, it's not, it is illegal. It's not protected speech to impersonate a police officer. That's what they said. And they said, but we could even see the misuse of it with someone creating a fake IRS page or
to scam people
or something like that. Yeah, to scam people. So they say that this is an issue in fact, not in law, whether or not it's enough of a parody. So with your initial assessment, I think you're right that this might pass the strict scrutiny or not. Yeah, I guess strict scrutiny sort of test. So I think it's going to be upheld, unfortunately.
Yeah. And that's because I think that there's enough sympathy into believing that this is a compelling need. And they did take steps to try and make it narrowly tailored by saying, look, if you want to do it, tell us it's a joke. If you want to do it, you can do it anytime you want. That's not during this window of time. It's specifically, they tried narrowing its time and application. I think that it's more of a struggle for them to defend barring deep fakes post-election in order to maintain the election integrity or something like that. But even that, I worry that the court will ultimately say after January 6th, we see how the public can be triggered into thinking it's a fake election, and we don't want people to be able to trigger that because they'll basically be triggered by January 6th and thinking that was inspired by people being duped by Trump, and they'd be worried about a repeat of that if we allow deep fakes to confuse people post-election.
It's almost an expansion on defamation or slander, right? So slander and defamation is not protected speech. But if you're putting out an image of a candidate claiming to have said something, it's almost akin to defamation. And it's just simply not protected. Now, if it's clearly a parody, and that's the thing, it's like, you ever know that person that doesn't pick up on your sarcasm? And you got to lay it on really thick for them to get your sarcasm.
Right.
It's a kind of almost like that. But so if you're creating something that could be mistaken as defamation, essentially saying that Trump or Kamala said something when they really didn't, then I think that's potentially actionable and potentially criminal if you pass the right statute. So
defamation is not a crime. It's more of a civil. It's a civil penalty, and it's not something that I don't think that the state could make it a criminal thing.
But impersonating a police officer is a crime. But I believe its roots are in defamation, because what you're doing is you're taking on the persona of the state or the state agent and trying to say that the state is acting this way or doing this thing.
I mean, okay, fine, but that has limited utility in this capacity where you're talking about California worrying about elections, because it's obviously not affecting police officers. There's no crime in imitating a political figure. So in that sense, the politicians don't have the protections that the police have. So, I guess in theory I'm wondering about that, because let's say in theory someone was to impersonate Gavin Newsom, right? So he knows that some people kidnapped Gavin Newsom, and he decides, and he's a great Gavin Newsom impersonator. He looks like he's made out of plastic and has a glaze of death. So, and he has the same slick back hair and creepy smile. And he goes in there and now starts, carrying out governor functions. Is there, I assume there's probably some sort of statute about that, like
impersonating a government official or something.
Impersonating a government official. Usually it's about police officers. I haven't even actually looked about cases of impersonating a government official.
Usually it is police officers, right? But I bet you the statute's written really broad to include other government officials if you look at them.
Carrying out government functions.
Yeah, so I think this law,
someone's gonna be impersonating Shirley from the DMV and just like approving all these drivers.
Yeah, it sounds horrible, and I think you're right that they saved themselves by carving out parody and satire and things like that,
and giving you a way to do it, even though you're right, it ruins the joke. It's much less funny seeing parody ad than just seeing ad. It just that's what makes it funny, is the notion that people could believe it is what makes it funny.
Right. That's what it is. Or, but no, I don't think this would count. Like, I took a video of one of Kamala's campaign ads, and I put like a little thing on it, text on it and stuff. And I said, tell me that you don't understand economics without telling me you don't understand economics. And it was like her campaign ad. That wouldn't really be parody because those are her actual words, right? So, yeah, I don't know.
They were talking about using it to digitally alter in a way that's designed to deceive, so that it's the original. That's how I read these bills as applying and not applying to anything like, breaking up what she's saying, and that I think is totally fine here. But
doesn't government official clash with recent Chevron decision? I don't know. I haven't read that decision specifically, but I don't think it would. That was just about giving deference to an agency. Sorry, I was reading the chat.
That's all right. My chat is very informed. They're intelligent.
Thad the Man. That's who chatted that.
I've spoken to Thad the Man. When I have call-ins, Thad the Man is usually, he's very good at timing to get in when I have call-ins about when I have call-in shows talking about, and he's always a whirlwind. Let me get a couple of these chats here. Let the AI flag a banner on it as satire if you wish, but I shouldn't have to scream sarcasm before I speak. Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Although I do wish there was an emoji which denoted sarcasm. So when I'm texting sarcastically, I could, tell people.
Yeah. Should I tell you something? I used to be, back before like social media was a thing, I used to be in these before there was like WhatsApp and stuff like that. So I was in this dynasty fantasy baseball league where we had an email loop, which you could have days where there were literally hundreds of emails that would be throwing at each other, like yelling at each other or mocking someone or mocking players that that one team had or another team had. And it was, someone actually said, I can never tell when I'm reading Joe's emails whether he's serious or sarcastic. Like, I have no idea at all if he's serious or sarcastic. So I actually created a color code where I would highlight the text of my emails, where it was like green if it was completely sincere, red if it was 100% sarcastic, gold if it was actually true, both like it was actually completely true and completely sarcastic, and purple purple was like, I'm really not even sure how I mean this one myself. So
I get that from my kids. They're like, I can't tell if you're serious right now, Dad, or if you're being sarcastic.
Yeah. I should go through my email. I should actually do that on Locals. I should like just go through some of my old emails where I could show people how when I was writing, I put such emphasis on trying to be as cryptic as possible, where it's like no one knew what I meant, and half the time I didn't know myself. Anyway, what are you up to, my friend?
Not a whole lot. I've been working a lot actually. Got like trial after trial after trial, so that's been fun.
That's good.
I revamped the treehouse.
Nice.
And I've been just expanding my Lego collection with my Lego streams. So
those of you who are unfamiliar with MLS here, also known as David, that he does Law and Lego, which I actually appeared on once when I was sick as a dog, and I created for myself.
You were such a trooper. That was one of the longest.
It was like a 6 hours. It was like a 6-hour video where I think I told over a story how I went to jail in that during the course of that thing, which took like an hour and a half for me to tell just the story, and I wasn't working at all. And then afterwards, like I'm like halfway through the story, and like I'm pausing and I'm trying to like tell it over like really well, and the next thing I know, David's like, "Oh, I finished my Lego," and I'm like, "You son of a."
Well, you're supposed to build as you talk, that's the idea. But no, you had such a small set and so many great stories.
It was not a small set. It was. What the heck is that? What is that? It wasn't small.
Like 200 pieces or something.
I'm having a party to celebrate my 100K. I keep pushing it off. Yeah, I keep pushing it off, but I plan on having a whole bunch of folks, and I hope you're going to make it. It's either going to be this Sunday or the Sunday afterwards. But I'm hoping.
I'll be around.
Yeah, I'm hoping that you'll be able to pop on in. It's probably going to be a lengthy show, and you can pop in for whatever time period you want. But I really enjoy hanging out with you. And I'm going to be wrapping up. So why don't you tell people where they can find you? And I'm going to just wrap up over here.
Well, MLS is my one channel. My other one is Lego Law. You can check them out, both of them. I'm streaming more on the Lego Law one as of late. This Saturday, we have an afternoon Lego stream with actually this guy right here. He's an American-born but lives in Sweden, actor, director guy. So we're interviewing him this Saturday. And then I have a stream coming up. If you guys followed me at all on my other channel, I covered a lot of James and Jennifer Crumbly. Those were the parents of the Oxford school shooter. And continuing that sort of topic about holding parents liable, I'm going to be doing a stream on the Georgia school shooter father. So I'm getting a copy of his indictments, and we're going to take a look at it, compare it to James and Jennifer and that sort of thing. So
awesome.
So check that out. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I'm gonna land my plane over here and just sort of close on out here. I just want to do a quick, make sure I didn't miss anything over in Locals. No, I'm good. I'm all good. All right, my friends. I thank you all for joining me. I am going to try to host the Locals tomorrow. Maybe I'll whip out some of those old emails, which are like 20 years old, of like me basically mocking Ian Snell.
You should remove the color though, and then like have people like do a poll as to whether or not this is sarcastic or not, sort of thing.
Well, I don't know, because like if I'm talking about this is like I'm talking about like this rookie coming up, Justin Verlander or something like that. So in some of these like people, I'm like I don't know if they're gonna know. Also, you need to know with some of them, you sort of need to know the individuals I'm talking about, like their character traits. Like one guy who's like a narcissist, another guy who's, kind of stupid. So you wouldn't know that necessarily. It's like some of it's too much of an inside joke for people to get it on their own. But with the color coding, it's pretty funny. Anyway, I thank you all for joining me. Two rules when you're watching this show that I mandate on anyone who follows me. Okay, otherwise just get the hell out of here. Oh wait, I missed this one over here. The laws bound person and police officer is different context. It's not to prevent mockingbird police, but rather to protect innocent people from being harmed by creeps with a fake badge. Oh, that's a fair point. Yeah, I that's what I thought also. And
probably why he was acquitted initially of the criminal charges.
I actually was looking for the connect the dots puzzle here that she references. I don't see it, but I was gonna like sort of pull it up here. I'm sort of doing a quick look through, but yeah. Anyway, so I definitely I'll probably share some of that. Maybe we'll go through the Onion The amicus brief of the Onion. That sounds like a great way to spend the stream also. Anyway, tomorrow evening, I will be back here, God willing. The two rules I have are there's no such thing as lab meat. It's not meat, okay? There are no cows in laboratories. They're injecting God only knows what, and do not eat lab meat. And even more importantly than that is never eat the bugs. Never eat the bugs. Good night, good evening, and as always, Godspeed.